Fistful of Lead, Might and Melee. But wait, there's magic and mazes, but wait, there's more. Book 3, Monsters and Mazes. We're going all in on the Fistful of Lead fantasy by adding monsters to the mix. All 3 books, well, all 4 if you include the basic generic rules. A lot of the information that's in here is in here anyway, so if you're just looking for a straight medieval game, go ahead and give this a try. In our last episode, the townies, there were some death cultists monkeying about in the churchyard. They chased him off, chased him down, and put him down. But now the townies have found what the plan was. The death cult was hoping to drag, like a corpse from the cemetery out to an idol out in the woods, and they're not going to stand for that. They're going to go bust up the idol. Unfortunately for them, the Death Champion is waiting there to defend the idol. Let's see what happens. But first, let's take a look at our monsters. And I should point out, the scenario that we're going to be playing today has some fun little wrinkles in it. It's considered, it's in Book 2, and it is called, where is it? The Dark Idol. Here it is right there. We're going to set up terrain that looks a little something like this, and we're going to have our townies attacking this Dark Idol. The defenders, in this case, the monsters, are going to be able to put half their units, half their troops on the board in the center, and then there's and then half come in as reinforcements later, and then there's some fun effects for, at the beginning of every turn, what that Dark Idol might do. So, let's take a look at the monsters first today. In the last battle, the brains of this outfit was killed in kind of a classic old man wizard fight where they just beat each other with staves. So the Dread Champion is the guy that's left behind. He's waiting to rendezvous with his wizard master who never shows up. This is the leader. He's a brawler. Rerolls once per melee. He's got night vision, so he has a little demonic armor. That's important too. He's also solid, meaning he is never moved in combat. He won't switch places. He won't be pushed back. If he loses in combat to you, you don't get to push him around. Then we've got 2 regular troops. Of course, one is a skeleton with an axe and a shield, and one is a skeleton with a bow. Now, all of these skeletons are brittle, and they are soulless, meaning that, what does it mean? It means that they don't take shock. Only wounds will do anything to them, but because they're soulless, they're not very tricky. So you get a +1 in melee against them, and then again, they're brittle because they're all bones, so you get a +1 on the wound roll when you hit these guys. Now, these 3 skeletons over here have, and then I guess we should point out, light armor for both of these guys. Just one of them has a bow, and he does have a sword there, a knife, so he's never considered unarmored or unarmed, even if that bow breaks. Now, these 3 guys are a little different. In any era, you can trade in one of your regular guys for rabble, and that's what these 3 skeletons are. They do have this spear, which has a 2-inch range. They can attack when they're 2 inches away from you. More to the point, and they do get to +1 in the melee, but they only roll a d8, because they're rabble. And as usual, they are brittle and they're soulless. They actually have an extra +1. They are weapon masters with that spear. So altogether, they're going to be fighting at a +2. I know what you're thinking. Where's that second in command? Well, that's where the champion comes in. And he comes in like, oh my lord, what have we here? Here's the big monster. Look at that handsome lad, huh? That is Big Spooky. He rolls a d10, he is a giant, so he can throw rocks, 12 inches, 24 inches, no reload time. He does have light armor, and he's got claws, but look at that big old sword. That counts as a 2-handed weapon. It's got armor piercing 1, so when he hits a guy, your armor class is treated as 1 lower. He is also brittle and soulless, but, so again, you get the -1 to when you attack him, and he gets +1 on his wound roll, in addition to any other, bonuses that he's got. Like, I think he gets, no, I think he just gets the +1, yeah. But he is also large and in charge. So he's easy to hit. When you shoot him with a bow, you get a +1. He has 4 wounds, and he does +1 to his wound roll. So, he's going to be tough. He's also determined, so he ignores any melee penalties due to wound. Oh, all the skeletons are. Wait, is it just him? Oh, the rabble are not determined. These skeletons are determined, meaning they ignore. Now, again, all of the skeletons are soulless. They ignore shock period. These three fellas also ignore the penalties due to wounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to start these guys off board, and they're going to come on as reinforcements. These guys will start near the Dark Idol. I'm not going to go over all the abilities for the good guys. It's the same team as last time. They've got Baron Narab, who is the leader. They've got their second in command is the wizard, Drawiz, I think his name is. And then they've got two sword bros and a bow bro. We've got a lovely terrain set up here. If you want to see the far north end, you can see the reinforcements. Our Big Spooky and the Rabble are going to come on, one at the start of turn 2 and one at the start of turn 3. You'll have to forgive the Band-Aid. I'm getting better. I just slashed myself pretty good at work. The Dread Knight, Bow Skeleton, Sword Skeleton are all starting right in front of the idol. They can start within 9 inches, but I'm just going to put them there because the second team to set up is our heroes, and that is the townies who are setting up right down here. You can see I've got my lovely status markers down here. And the second in command, the junior wizard, is right here. We've got the two sword boys up front and Mr. Bow down here with the leader, Baron Narab, right there. They're going to be heading up this way. When the reinforcements come on for the skeletons, they have to come on. They have to be 6 inches away from the nearest enemy at a minimum. We're ready to start the game. While I shuffle these cards, let's talk about victory conditions. The Death Cult was hoping to grab the corpses of the villagers and make some more skeletons over here at the Dread Idol. That's the black rock in the center. Baron Narab is going to put an end to that threat forever by leading his forces on an attack. If they can wound the rock 3 times, then the rock will be busted. Now the trick is, you either shoot it or melee with it. It has an automatic defensive roll of 7. So you get a 7 or higher, you roll on the wound chart. If you get the wound, then it takes a wound. You get 3 of those, you win the game. Or if you just get 1 out of action roll on that attack, then it's out of the game. Any other result is the Dread Knight winning the scenario, and I guess maybe the campaign, because that will mean they've killed all the townies. And with all of that, we're done and ready to go. The cards are going to go 2, 4, 6 for the townsfolk. Our wizard here is very cunning. He gets to do 2 things. They get dealt an extra activation card. He also is an infiltrator, so he is going to, using our Wily Games tape measure, he gets to make a free 10-inch move, and he's going to infiltrate to right there. So that's where he starts the game. This is a ridge. It blocks the line of sight. A note on the terrain pieces: this piece does not have any trees. These are just rocks that cost movement. The bigger rocks are are they impassable? You can stand on them. Let's call it 2 inches to cross those. The smaller stumps and logs that you can see here, those cost an extra inch to cross. On top of the fact you're moving through thick woods, movement speed at half. The trees were just going to move out of the way. But again, it costs 2 inches to move 1 inch through this, and then an extra inch to cross over any of the modeled-in terrain pieces. As I was saying, the good guys get an extra card, and we are going to look at these cards and decide which one to get rid of. Well, we're not going to use the Joker in this game. So we got to decide which one we want to get rid of right off the jump, and I think we'll get rid of the roll 2 dice and pick the best. No, you know what? 4 is low enough. We're going to get rid of the 4. So that's our 5 activation cards for the townsfolk. And for the... we get 3 10s. Man, that's not a bad poker deal, is it? For the Dread Knight. The Dread Knight himself is going to move first, and he wants to slow these guys down. He's going to move 5 inches up to here, and I think that's good. Oh, no, I'm doing this wrong, though. He doesn't go first. We got to call out, does anybody want to go on the kings? And the King of Spades gets to go first. The aces are also going to go on kings. That's going to allow our leader to move all of his guys up the full 10 inches, and they're going to scurry on up. So 10 to there, 10 to there. Oh, these provide one. They don't slow movement at all, these grassland, but they do provide soft cover of 1 inch. And then our boss man is going to run up to right there behind. And that's going to be it for our 3 movements. And if, I'm sorry, that's the 3 King of Spades. Okay? Then we call out 10s. Hey, look at that. So our Dread Knight is going to get to go next. And he's going to bring his archer around here. He's got line of sight. Well, he can move up to 5 inches. And since he's moving, he might as well come up to cover right here to where he's got line of sight to within 9 inches. He's going to shoot at this knight. Now, that shot does put him out of ammo, so we'll put a little marker there to remind us. You can put those over on your character sheet. I find it's easier to put it next to the figure. Clutters up the battlefield a little bit, but, you know, at least that way I've got a visual representation. I'm trying to manage 11 guys this time because we got a couple of rabble over there. No, 12 guys. Yeah, 7 plus 5 is 12. I'm a very smart mather. I need that visual representation. It really helps me out. But be that as it may, he's going to take his shot. And the bowman, he is an expert bowman. He's got a +1 to his die roll. And he needs to hit, because it's close range, on a 4-up. Normally it's 5. He gets a 3. I'm using my D20s. Ignore the 10s. That 3 is a miss on the sword guy. Then our Dread Knight is gonna race up. Now, first we're gonna bring up our axe guy, and it's, you know, this is 10 inches right here, so he's got the movement to race through here and attack this guy, and that means we have an actual fight on our hands. I'm gonna use team. Oh, what color should I use here? I'm gonna use blue. I wish I had a yellow one of these. I'm gonna use blue for the townsfolk and red for our Death Knight. Our townsfolk guard is at +2. 1 for the sword, and 1 because the skeleton is soulless. The skeleton is at +2. 1 because he's got a sword, and 1 because he charged. So kind of an even fight in this first round. 2 versus 2. The red gets a 5. Also, because these two guys have the same profile, these guys will win ties against the skeletons. The blue for the townsfolk is winning by 1, means that skeleton has to, he's wearing light armor. He's got to make an armor check of 8 or higher. And with a 5, he doesn't make it, so we go with a straight roll on the wound chart, and a roll of 6. Now remember, they're brittle, so that's going to be at +1, is going to be wounded. By the way, those rabble, wounded means he goes down. By the way, those rabble, they have a D8, and they only have 1 wound. This skeleton has, oh, you know, he's got a shield, so he gets a +1 on his armor check, but with the 4, he still failed. Then it becomes the Dread Knight's turn, and the Dread Knight is going to race up, and he is going to fight. You know, I wonder if this skeleton should have fought both of these guys. That might have been more appropriate because they're so close to each other. Because this skeleton is on the ground, he doesn't... Let me turn him so you're not looking at a washer. Yuck. We'll do that with this Dread Knight. Remember, the Dread Knight is rolling a D12. And he's kind of a bad mamma jamma. He is a brawler, so he gets to reroll his melee. And he never moves in combat. He also has a magic sword. Did I mention that? And he has infernal armor. And he has a healing potion. That infernal armor slows him down. He can only move 8 inches, but given where he was, yeah, he's fine. The dread armor, the magic sword gives him +2 to melee and does +1 on the wound. The infernal armor means that if you try to cast a spell at him, you're at -2. Be that as it may, this time we're going to roll 2 d10s for our sword bros. They're going to be at +1 just for the swords. And then our champion is going to be at D12 +2, and he gets the reroll. We got a 1 for, I guess we'll just call that the guy on the right. That's a 2 and a 3, which means he is now disarmed. He's dropped his weapon. And this is brutal, man. Absolutely. 10% of the time you attack, you're going to be completely unarmed. I think what we'll do is, I kind of like the idea that if you're disarmed, it's going to take you a full action to recover your weapon, and you cannot do it when you're in melee. I like that one better. It gives you a cost, but it doesn't completely break your back the way being disarmed for the rest of the game does. Be that as it may, we're going to go ahead and re-roll this 3 because I think we can do a lot better. There you go. We get a 12, and it's not looking good. That is a difference of more than 7 against both of these guys. They are both wearing... I gotta quit covering up my character sheets. They are both wearing heavy armor. Oh, I guess they only should have moved 8 inches. Well, I guess they came on the board, 2 inches into the board. Ha! That way it doesn't really hurt anything. And really, maybe it should have been leader against leader in this first fray. The issue now becomes our safety checks. Light armor. Did I say light? No, heavy armor. It's going to be on a 6-up and on a 6-up. Oh, 5-up because they both have shields as well. So the guy on the left, he rolls a 9, and the guy on the right, he rolls a 9. So they both will reduce their effects by 1 step. However, these are both going to be at +3 on the wound check. So the guy on the right gets a result of a 4, or on the right, and the guy on the left gets a 7. The 4 is going to be, I think that's just a shock, and when you step that down 1, that's no effect. The 7 is wounded, which turns into a shock. And, well, you know what, even with, I forgot, he's actually at -1 because he's fighting 2 guys, but even with that, it was still 7-up. So that shock means that this sword guy is going to have a -1 on everything he does. But that, fortunately, for the heroes, is the end of the activation for the bad guys. We now have the option of bringing up our bowman, who can move 10 inches, and he's going to slide on up to... Man, he's still not going to have a very good shot, but we can bring him up to here. We'll say the 2 big rocks block line of sight. You can see over those. Hey, get down, take a look. Yeah, so you can get to there. And, I don't know, do we want to take a shot at long range? This bowman is in cover. So we're just going to move him. And then the last... No, you know what we're going to... Oh, we can't. We don't have a line of sight through the combat. So that's all he can do. We got a free reload, and we're not even going to be able to use it. Then we have to do the wizard. And the wizard is going to cruise on up to here. That's where he's going to stop. And he's going to start casting a spell. I say start to because this action will take more than 1 turn. If he uses both of his actions, which, oops, that means he can't move. We're going to put him back here. He's going to try to summon an air elemental. He is a... junior spellcaster, right? Second in command, so he succeeds on a 5-up. And on a 9, he's successful. So I'm going to drop a little, what should we put? We're going to put a little, this is actually a hold marker, but I'm going to put this here to remind me he's successful once. If he succeeds on a 6-up check next turn, he's going to summon a medium air elemental, and that'll be super cool. That's if he survives, because remember, there's going to be some reinforcements running on, and they may try to disrupt his spell. If he's wounded in the casting of that spell, then he's not going to get it off. It's not clear to me what happens if he fails that second roll. I think if he fails the second roll, then we're going to bring on the small elemental, and he will need 2 full turns of rest. Remember, after every spell, you have to take a certain number of turns off, which can be kind of a deal breaker. That spell getting off is the end of the turn. So there's a couple things we got to do to close out the turn. The first of which is figure out, since we have a bad guy standing on the pavement that surrounds that idol, something happens. A dark cloud, if at least one member of the retinue is within 6 inches at the end of a turn, roll a d10 on the chart below. So we roll and we get a 7, and that means earthquake. The ground buckles and cracks. Every miniature on the table must pass a hard task roll or fall to the ground. If a miniature rolls a 1, they have fallen in a crack in the earth and are out of action. Every miniature on the table, the fallen miniature must pass a standard recovery roll to stand up. So the Dark Idol is doing its best to protect itself, I suppose. We'll start with the bow guy over here. What did it say? It's an 8 up? That's a little crazy. Must pass a hard task roll. All right. We'll start with the good guys. The bow guy over here gets a 1. He falls through a crack in the earth and he is gone. Then we'll try our spellcaster and see what happens with him. He rolls a 9, and he's fine. Then our champion on the side of the good rolls a 5. Oh, no, he does not. He rolls a d12. And a 3 is no good, so he falls down. Then this disarmed guy rolls a 9, he's okay. And the shocked trooper rolls a 9 and is okay. Then the guy that's laying down rolls, and he can't fall down twice, but if you roll a 1, he's out. The Dread Knight is going to roll a 4. He falls down. And the last guy on the table is the bow guy, who is going to roll a 0, and he's okay. Well, to do a recovery takes 2 actions, and you cannot recover... Wow, this is interesting. Oh, this is fascinating. Man, there's a real potential here. The Dread Knight is on the ground. Dread Knight down. Dread Knight down. Let me shuffle these up real good, and we will roll. Now, without that bowman, that kind of stinks, but life just got interesting. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards for the heroes, and 1, 2, 3 for the guys on the table, and then a 4th one for the reinforcements. We're going to look at the... Oh, remember, a queen lets you stand up and still take your 2 actions. We're going to take a look at which one do we want to get rid of. I think we got to get rid of the 5 for the good guys. And then for the bad guys, we've got a pair of 7s, a jack, and an ace. So the ace is great because it's a wild card and it means they get to go first. Now, here's the question for the Dread Knight. Does he want to spend this as a Queen of Hearts and stand up immediately, or does he want to spend it as a king to bring his reinforcements in and jack up the spellcaster? I think he's got to spend it as a queen because that allows him to stand up. If he does not stand up, these 2 guys... Wait a minute. I've knocked the Dread Knight back over because... We're going to do a little quick edit here. Remember that it goes in reverse alphabetical order. The Queen of Spades goes first for our heroes. By spending that as a queen, he should have spent it as, oh, no. If he spends it as a king, he goes first, but he's got to make a recovery roll. So he has to wait for the spades to go first. That being the case, we are going to race this guy past the dead bodies, and he's going to come even. Now, he only moves 4 inches because of that shock marker. And he's going to fight at -1, but he's close enough to that bow skeleton to get stuck into melee. That's what he's going to do on the Queen of Spades. If he can put that bow guy down, he'll be able to rush up and attack the idol. So we got to roll that combat first. Kind of leaving his friends out to dry over here, but remember, it's the idol first. It's going to be a roll of a d10 versus a d10. Again, the red is going to be for the bowman, and the bowman gets a 6, and our hero gets a 7. Now we need to work through a couple of things. Our sword guy is going to be at +1 because he charged. He's going to be at +1 for the sword, and he's going to be at +1 because the skeleton is brittle. So he gets a total of 10. -1 because he is shocked. He gets a total of 9. We'll flip this over to here. Then the skeleton is going to be at a total of 6, and I think that's it. He's just got the bow, and we'll give him the benefit of a knife, but he still loses by 3, which means this wound roll. Well, first we got to do the light armor. Succeeding on an 8 up, we get a 9, so that means it's going to be successful. Then our wound roll is going to be at a total of +2. 1 because he's brittle, and +1 for the difference. We get a 12, plus the 10 plus 2 is a 12, and that's going to be an out of action. But because the bowman made his armor check, we drop that down to the next category. I think that's just a wound. We'll double check. The 10 out of action goes down to wounded, and this skeleton is going to fall down like so. And I think that's about it. Yeah. All right, now we do the Dread Knight. And the Dread Knight stands up and attacks this guy all by his lonesome. It's going to be a D12 versus a D10. And it's going to be a 3 and a 10. Ooh, 10 for the swordsman, who is unarmed. But hold on. Dread Knight gets to re-roll. He only gets a 5 this time. Let's work our way through all of the penalties and whatnot. Magic Sword takes this up to a 7. And this guy is unarmed, so it stays. I think that's about it. He doesn't get the +1 for the sword. Yeah, that's it. A differential of 3 means we're going to be at +1 on the wound check, although he does get an armor check in his heavy armor. Roll high. A 4 ain't going to do it. So we roll the wound check, and it's just a Dread Knight. The wound check gets a 5, and a 5 on the wound chart is a shaken. So the Dread Knight says, "What? How did you beat me?" And that's the end of his turn. Then it becomes the Queen of the Diamonds, and for that, we need to... he's going to try to... I take it back. Instead, we're going to have the Wizard go next. With a 6, he passes his second spell check. Now, he has to rest for 2 full turns. Until then, he's going to be stuck fighting hand-to-hand. But he does summon an air elemental. I don't have an air elemental, so I'm going to make it an invisible elemental. He can drop it within 6 inches of himself, but it cannot be in hand-to-hand combat. So he's going to drop that air elemental. There it is, the kind of translucent column of air. It's going to start right there, and it has a profile all its own. The air elemental is it's ethereal, which I got to look up what that means. Man, this gets really complicated. Got it. It is ethereal, so it ignores terrain, and it is impervious, so it ignores wound penalties. We draw a card. It's going to activate on a 5 of diamonds. In the meantime, he's going to stand right there. He has 3 wounds and fights as a D10 enemy. He can shoot 6 or 12 inches. The next order of business is going to be resolving the bad guys. What was it? That Queen of Diamonds. Wait, we did the Queen of Hearts. We did the Queen of Spades for him. Oh, that's... No. I'm getting this all backwards. We did the Queen of Spades for him, the Queen of Hearts, and then the Queen of Diamonds. That means we are down to the Jacks. And so for the Jacks, we are going to need to bring in... let's see, that's the Heroes cards. We're going to have to bring in some of those reinforcements. Do we bring in the Rabble, or do we bring in the Giant? And I think we have to bring in the Rabble. Man, that's a rough one. No, we're going to do a full-on magic battle. Check this out. Big Spooky arrives on the scene. Now, he's got to start 6 inches away from the spellcaster. But with his 5 inches of movement, he's got plenty to get stuck in and pin the elemental into place. He's going to smash his big old sword, and as always, the red die, well, he's disarmed. It's a difference of 9. Now, that's a difference of 8 because he charged. It's going to be at least 7, I can tell you that right now. The air elemental wins the combat, and it's going to be +3 in the wound chart. That is an armor check for the giant skeleton, who's effectively wearing light armor. He fails, so it's going to be a straight roll. On the wound chart, the 6 is going to be bumped up to a 3. And then does he have anything else? It becomes a 4. It actually becomes a 10 because he's brittle. And that puts him out of action. Good job, Mr. Giant. Boy, what an asset to the community you are, huh? That's going to be it for the Jacks. Then we say, hey, who goes next? We got anybody on the 8s? Yeah, we do. Gonna need to make a recovery roll to stand up our leader, if that's what we want to do. And I don't know, man. I guess we do. The recovery roll, it takes 2 actions, so that's all our leader can do this turn. I guess he's counted as shaken. It says you got to pass a standard recovery roll. I don't know. I don't understand. And on a 6-up, he is not shaken. He doesn't have any wounds or anything, so I guess he's can stand up. And he still has 1 action, so we'll put him in close combat with the Dread Knight. Now we're going to have to break out a second D12. The white D12 will be for the good guy. The purple D12 will be for the Dread Knight. And then we've got our unarmed... He's got a shield, but he's still technically unarmed. So that's going to be an 11 versus a 1 versus a 3. The Dread Knight can re-roll. And he's disarmed. He's got a 1. And this guy rolls yet another 1. Wow, you're not doing so hot there, guy, are you? Gotta work our way through some of these modifiers, though. Let's figure out what happens to the Sword Bro first. Because the Dread Knight is solid, we don't have any issues there. He's got the magic weapon, so he's got +2 on that. And I think that's it. So he wins by 2 against this guy. And that means we have to make an armor check. A 2 is a failure. And then we make the wound check. And the 7, +1 for the magic weapon, is going to be an 8. And now, in addition to being disarmed, this guy is going to be wounded. On the other hand, the Dread Knight's score, now we're going to compare he gets +2 to the melee. However, our boss man also gets +2 to the melee. So he's going to be at a total of 13 versus 3. I don't have enough on the pips on the dice, do I? For a total differential of 10. Look, it's going to be more than 7. He's going to be +3 on the wound check. However, our Dread Knight does have heavy armor. He's going to fail his armor check, which means this will be a straight wound roll at +3, and we're going to call that a 9-12. The Dread Knight is out of action. And it's not looking good for Team Evil at this point. That's the 8 of hearts for the good guys. Now we've got a 7 and a 7, which means we're going to have to try to recover with these 2 figures. Let's do the bow guy first. Rolling on he's wounded, trying to stand up. The 9, I think that does it. I think you want to roll high on this recovery check. He's going to be at -1. That becomes an 8. He is... model may stand. All right? And that's really it. But because he's locked in melee, they've got to roll. And it's going to be a total of -1 for both of these because of those wounds. A tie roll is not good for Mr. Skeleton because he does not have a melee weapon, and he's fighting a guy that has a melee weapon and is fighting a guy who's brittle, so it's a difference of 2, which is not going to be enough for the boost on the wound roll. Roll for light armor. Fails. Straight wound check. And a 3 plus... Is there anything for that? +1 because the feller's brittle. I should say it's -1 on the attack for soulless. The 3 is going to be a shaken effect. +1 becomes 4 for the brittle. Does the sword give you a +1 on the wound roll? I don't think it does. Where are you, sword feller? No, it's just for the magic. Just for the magic one. So the shock means nothing happens. How about that? Then the other 7 goes, and that's going to be this skeleton down here. He has to make a recovery check. And on a 4, he's wounded. So that recovery check is still wounded, and I guess he's down. He's going to be, which means he's fighting at -2 versus our champion. You're in combat still, right? But there's 2 guys here. He doesn't I don't know. Does he factor even though he's on the ground? If he wins this melee, he stands up, I can tell you that. I guess we'll call... Oh, right. So it's going to be 9 for our guy on the ground, which is going to be reduced by 2. So that becomes a 7. 1 for the soulless, 1 for the wound, and 1 because it's down. So that actually becomes a 6. All right. Our guy on the ground here is unarmored. His roll will become a 5-4. 1 because he's on the ground, and 1 because he's wounded. So he's lost by 2. Then our champion here is going to be at 3. Does he have... What else does he got? He's got the big sword, so that becomes a 4. And, yeah, that's it. So both of these guys are going to lose by 2, which means they both have to first make an armor check. Let's check for the sword guy. His armor check is he needs he's medium armor, so he makes that. So his step down, and then our big boy is going to fail his armor check because he needs heavy armor. He needs a 6 up. So our sword guy is going to roll a 10, but that steps down. He takes a 2nd wound. And then our boss is going to roll a 5. And he has to eat that because the guy that's on the ground is skeleton with a sword. And I think that is a shaken. So he goes, "What? How did you do that, even though you are outnumbered?" Oh, I forgot he's outnumbered. Which means you only won by 1, so no big change. Okay, that's going to be the end of the leader's turn. Then we got to deal with this guy's recovery check. The wizard decides to stand up, and with a 0, he goes, whoop, and he can move 1 more time. The cliff is impassable. He can move 5 inches. Let's do that. Let's bring him... Oh, no, he's slow. He can only move 4 inches. So we're going to kind of bring him around to here. Trying to stay out of the way. And then our air elemental gets to go. The air elemental is going to slide on over here and force those guys to make some difficult choices. And then he's got a D10 shot. He needs a 7 or higher to hit the slab, and he fails. So that's the end of the turn. Moving into turn 3, if we kind of move these trees, you can see the little melee that's going on the base of the idol there. I've already shuffled my deck of cards. I'll cut them, and I'm going to deal out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. Remember, we got a tactician here for the heroes, and then I'm going to deal out 1, 2, 3 cards for the skeletons, who are leaderless. Then we look at our 5 and decide which one we want to discard. Kind of a terrible hand here. We're going to get rid of that 4. That's the least useful of them. And it looks like the skeletons are going to get to go first, unless they have a terrible draw too. We've got 3 rabble waiting in the wings to charge in. Wait a minute. Did I... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what? I forgot, we have an air elemental. We need one more card. It's going to be the 2 for our heroes. That's great. Starting with the kings. Do we have any queens? Yeah, we do. We got one Queen of Heart we want to do. This is a heal card. We're going to use it as a Queen of Hearts. And we're going to stand this guy up. We're going to lose a wound. And he is now on his feet. And he says, I want my sword. So he uses his first action to grab the sword off the ground. In fact, do we want to do 2 actions? I don't think so. I think we're going to go ahead and attack the skeleton who is on the ground with that other action. The red die is the skeleton. The skeleton rolls a 1. Our leader rolls a 4. And the guy who's doing the actual attack rolls an 8. Now, both of these go up by 1 because they're fighting somebody that's brittle. Leader becomes a 5, and our sword bro becomes a 9. Everybody's score goes down by 1 because of the shock and the wound, but his score goes down again by 1, making it a 0, and I think that's where we wind up. No, that's not true. Both of these go up by 1 more, so it's going to be a differential of 10 for our sword bro and a differential of 6 for our leader. That's 2 wounds that this skeleton has to check. They are both going to be a +1 on the wound check. Let's roll through, since he was the active participant, let's roll for the sword bro first. And that is the... he's wearing light armor. That's a failed armor check. And then we roll for the wound, and it's going to be a total of +2 to this. And we'll re-roll because that was a little weird. A total of 7 is going to be a second wound for the skeleton, and then we've got a differential of 10, which is going to be at +0. What was the differential there? It was like 6, which I think is that an out of action? Differential of 6 is +2, so the 7 becomes a 9, and this skeleton actually goes out of action. So finally, we're good there. And I think, oh, you know what I forgot to do? At the end of the last turn, oh dear, we got to roll on that D10 chart because we still have a bad guy within 6 inches. Let's do it right now. The heroes got away with something there. And on a result of an 8, or did they? On a result of an 8, it's going to be a result of earthquake. The ground buckles and cracks. Every miniature must pass a hard test. Everybody needs to roll an 8 or better, or fall to the ground. So we'll roll for our wizard first. An 8, he's okay. We'll roll for our leader. A 6, he is down. He was already down, so we're just going to roll to see if he gets a 1. He got a 9, so he was fine. And then the archer over here is going to get a 6. So he falls down and is going to have to make a recovery check. We got to roll for that archer, who is going to roll a 6, and he falls over and is going to have to make a recovery check. And then we're not going to roll for the air elemental. You can't knock air over with an earthquake. Deal with it. GM's call on that one, gang. Hey, it just makes sense, right? What's the point of having a magical servant if he's going to get slapped around? So he did pass, and everything kind of worked the way it was supposed to. That didn't hurt us. The earthquake was only effective, and it knocked down these 2 melee guys. And then we're right back into the turn order where we say, all right, we did queens, and then you go down the order till you say, hey, I've got a 9 here, and that 9 is going to be spent by the air elemental who attacks the idol, looking for a 7-up. We get a 2, and that's a failure. All right. I mean, the game can end if this is if we get a hit on the 7-up and then a 9 or a 10, it's out of action and the game is over. As it stands, in fact, what I'm going to do is bring the air elemental over here because he can just stand there shooting. Now it forces the skeletons to decide. I guess we have to bring in the rabble. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're bringing in the rabble. And they're going to charge after the wizard, which is going to be 6.5 inches away. It's going to take both of their movements to jump on top of this guy. Honestly, it'd probably be smart to kind of... Oh, man, I don't even know at this point. That's going to be on the 8 for the rabble. They come in and they pile up. I'm gonna need some more D10s for this one. Well, actually, the D20s will all be for this. Oh no! I'm gonna have to roll D8s. Oh my lord, this gets complicated, doesn't it, gang? The D10 is gonna be for our wizard, who, by the way, gets a. Ooh, you know what? No, we're gonna do. They all activate on the same. They have spears. They have a range of 2 inches, and they have 2 actions. So they're gonna be able to rush up like this, and I'm gonna put one of these guys on each. Attacking from 2 inches away means that your enemy can run. All right, so we got 3 combats. So let's do this one first. The wizard does have that staff, but he can't use it as a polearm, so it's going to be a straight roll-off. It's going to be a D8 versus a D10. And look at that, another one, another disarmed. I'm going to need more blue chips the way this is going. The differential of 6 there, it's not actually 6. This goes up to a 2 because the skeleton is brittle. And this goes up to an 8 because he charged, and then they both go up by 1. Actually, it's 6, right? 3 and 9. So the differential of 6 means it's a +2 on the wound chart. He is unarmored. The +2 becomes a 4, and our wizard is now shocked and unarmed. Then we're going to do the leader versus the polearm. Our leader is at a total of, he's got a big sword, which is at +1, and this guy is at +1 for the polearm, so that negates. He's at +1 because he charged, and I think that's it. So it's +1 to the D8. So a 4 versus a 10 is a difference of 6. I forgot. It's actually a difference of 7 because he's brittle. That's going to be a total of 11 versus 7. And the skeleton now has... Does he have any armor? The rabble only has a spear, so no armor check. He makes his... It's +3 to this roll. That 6 is going to be a wound, and he dies. They only have 1 wound. And then we have... Man, and that's even without rolling the D12 for the veteran leader. How about that? And then we have our sword boy over here, who's at a total of +1 because he's fighting a brittle guy, and +1 for the D8. So they're both at +1. Our friend, he's at -1 because of the wound. That's a difference of 5. It's going to be +2 on the wound roll, and this rabble goes down. This game is pretty much over, I'm thinking. The rabble is gone, and the only thing left now is the 7. Who's going to go next? Reroll 1 die. Well, the leader there for our heroes is 8 inches away. We'll call it, he's got 9 inches. He's going to rush on over here. Now, he is shocked, but this guy is down. This archer is down. So our leader is able to make contact with the dark idol. You can see him over here. He's in melee. He's going to make his attack roll. He needs a 7 up, and because he's using the 7, there you go. He beat it by 5. So he makes his... sometimes it's fun to go back and just double-check the rules of an engagement to make sure that you're playing the game properly. Sometimes I do that. I know it's hard to believe, you guys in the comment section, but it happens, and I'm going to do it right now. The Dark Idol, you hit it on a 7-up. Does it get an armor save? I don't think it does. Close combat roll 7. Just like in combat, if you beat it, compare the difference to the wound chart. Failure means the idol is... You beat the roll, right? So at 5, you cannot be hurt by attacking. A shock result does nothing. A wound damages, and out of action destroys it. Or an out of action does 3 wounds, however you want to look at it. So the next thing up, it doesn't get an armor save. That was the big thing I wanted to check. So we roll to see what it does. We get a +2, and on a 6 + 2, that's an 8, and that is going to be the first of 3. Wait. This is a 14. Because our boss man there has a +1 to his attack, and he had charge, so he's at +1. That's 14. Beats it by 7. Add 3 to this roll, and it's out of action, and that is the game. Baron Nerob himself. I'll stand him up on the idol. He's going to teabag it. Leaping over the undead bodies littering the battlefield floor and just going full sword in the stone and ramming his big two-handed sword down into the blasphemous black rock, which shatters it and sends it back to the nether realms from whence it came. Little more complicated scenario here today, and we were able to incorporate all of the fun elements of Fistful of Lead fantasy, including magic spells, magic monsters, some of whom, well, neither of these monsters were all that impressive, were they? That air elemental, you can cast for 3 turns and get like a major air elemental. Our minor air elemental just wind up, shooting ineffective darts, just whispering sweet nothings. But he did better than this giant skeleton. I mean, he looks terrifying, right? And then all he did is he just like got blown to pieces by Mr. Air Elemental. And kind of an interesting scenario. I like those smash scenarios. There's a little bit more to it than that. The reinforcements coming in as late as they did kind of opened the door. The heroes were able to deal with them piecemeal, which, if you ask me, might have made all the difference in the world. In the end, I give this game a solid recommend. Remember that the Wily Games was good to me, and my opinion, might be colored, but you can see how well it's colored. This was a fun little game. We played through in, it was about 45, 50 minutes, full 5-on-5 with the rabble. I mean, they weren't too effective, but they slowed down the heroes a little bit. Maybe we should have brought the rabble on first and had them attack instead of this big boy. I don't know what kind of difference it would have made. We got the rules righter than ever, and like I said, Fistful of Fridays is probably going to be what we do moving forward. If I dumped out enough other videos of lesser games in the interim, this might have dropped on a Friday, but either way, moving forward, we'll reserve Fridays for Fistful of Lead. We still have a lot of titles to work our way through, and there's still a lot more we can do with this game. I'm looking forward to sharing more with you. Look for that next week. In the meantime, if it's Friday is viewer day. That's when I pray my rosary. This ain't just a pretty decoration, guys. That is my weapon for the modern world. Until Monday, I'm praying for you.